So as a quick tip, having a mustache can increase your strength stat in the gym. That's why I got it equipped.
That's why you got.
I don't know how that helps on the
Fuck,
drawing, but
Tyler,
it'll get us going.
your stats.
Anyways,
Yeah,
I'm Tyler Edlin. This is Adam Duff. We're here with the Brushed Off's Critiques, and I believe
okay.
we've titled this challenge "The Endless Shore." The idea is to concept and design out a beach, kind of Polynesian style civilization.
And
So I
hot
assume
diggity
some of
did you
these will be in
guys come
illustration
through on your
format.
end? Holy smokes, we're gonna have a tough time this week because these are some serious submissions.
Yep. So we're gonna go Rascore number 1.
All right, all right.
This is
Did that
cool.
color just change?
It could have.
It looks like. Did you hit
Sometimes my
Control Y
display
maybe?
does. Sometimes my display does weird things.
Okay. All right.
I like the scale and the sense of depth that you have in this scene. This is like super creative.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm
My,
getting a little bit of an optical illusion due to some very interesting tangents. We've got that ship off in the back that's making a bit of that C curve, and it's passing in front of that pillar, which is totally screwing with my sense of depth. And then you've got that foreground palm tree that's just ever so perfectly creating a tangent with the base of that structure. So what that makes me, I totally interpreted that as that dangling thing was suspended from the sky. And yeah, my sense of scale is getting really messed with in kind of an interesting way. But I don't know if that was intentional.
there's a bit of a tangent here too.
Yeah.
With that
Yeah.
said, though, there's a lot going on in this scene, design
Yeah.
and conceptually. It's like almost taking, pardon me, too many things into one frame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have this very basic, kind of simple, easily recognizable architecture going on down here. You have a secondary thing going on in the staging area in the midground.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have these megalithic-sized spires going on in the background. And then you have these weird little spires that are hanging from the sky. And then you have these ships drifting through the sky. You know what I mean? Like, and then you pick one thing that this image is about and make it about that image. There's just
Yeah.
way too much going on for it to kind of have a lot of cohesion and unity.
Yeah. We don't know what to prioritize, right? 'Cause
Like
everything-
when I look at this, it's like I don't know what I'm supposed to look at or what it's particularly about. Like, okay, you're selling a nice open vista shot,
Yeah.
with it's an establishing shot, which is fine, but it's like there's not a priority on anything here.
Yeah. No, yeah, perfect what Tyler said. It's less is going to definitely be more for you in this particular case. The one thing I'd also point out too is you got to whenever you're doing an illustration, pay attention to what the payoff is. So all these perspective lines are all pulling your eye towards something. What is it? Are these eyes is there a nice payoff at the end of that eye flow type of thing? And don't over inundate it because we don't know what we're supposed to care about. And rhythm. Pay attention to your rhythm because you've got a lot of repeat. Like if you look at those monolithic structures, they create a very repeated pattern. Try to play around with that a little bit more so that it doesn't feel too redundant, right? Play around with the size, scale, placement a little bit, and make it feel a little bit more random in that sense.
The other issue, I think, since you put a lot of effort in this that I want to mention, is the temperature of your color tones.
Yeah.
You essentially have warm on warm. All your highlights are warm. All your shadows are also warm. It's making for a very flat looking image. See, like, this is like, look at the distance. You have a person here. You have like little huts and boats and docks. But that could be a mile, half a mile, if you're in the U.S. How many kilometers in the rest of the world?
More. Yeah.
Yeah, but we completely lose that sense of depth. Like here, you have a foreground tree. Right here, but it's completely flat, and that's one of the biggest offenders. But then you also have these massive spires, as I talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Those would all, if they're like, again, a half a mile out from each one, they're all going to have a lot more atmospheric perspective than the one before. There's no extra atmosphere in any of these. You get a little less detail, which I think is a good move, but there's no atmospheric perspective.
Yeah.
The easiest way that I can just quickly show this,
Yeah.
just to even separate that, right, if I go to adjustment, go down to levels, and just start pumping in, oh, I'm on the wrong layer, sorry. I just start pumping in the blue. That will kind of soften and add that atmosphere. And the only reason I'm going blue is because blue is your sky color. You'd want to go with whatever color your atmosphere is, which in most cases is blue. So see how it's automatically starting to add those blue tones into your shadows and into your background? It's starting to fill it with atmosphere. And you have to add more every subsequent layer within your image.
Right.
But yeah, that's just some few tips. Hopefully it helped. It's a beautiful submission. You got a lot going on. You just got to work through that.
Yeah, beautiful render. The effort was more than enough. It's just those little tweaks, and that should make all the difference. But beautifully done. All right,
Anton.
Anton.
This guy works his ass off, Anton.
Yeah.
He's in my architecture design class right now.
That does not
as a disclaimer, he didn't work on any of this in the class. This has been entirely separate, but I can see he's been taking some things he's been learning. This is beautiful.
Yeah, and we can immediately see that nice sense of atmospheric depth, the cooler, less saturated tones as we go progressively off in the background, less contrast. We really feel that depth in that atmosphere in the shot.
See, he's got... Now, just comparing this to the last shot, there's just two things kind of going on in this scene. We have the hut and the village design, and then there's basically the environment itself, which you have the shape of the rocks. So you have kind of like these two basic things, and these people, they're here to help sell the scale of this world. They're just supporting actors in the scene, much like yours. That's why in the previous one I didn't make a point to circle the people in the scene.
Right.
Because they're just there to sell scale. But this is super focused. It has a lot of interesting shapes. I think this is great.
Yeah, I think this is very, very... there's not a whole lot to scrutinize here.
No, there really isn't. You have a little softer approach to your color temperature than I personally would go, but I can't fault you for that. I think that's a personal choice in this case. Yeah. But let's say if you wanted to get super technical with things, right? If you have a shape of this sculpted rock right here, I would make... probably the inside of those basically a lot warmer. Now this is a brush without opacity or anything, so it's going to look kind of garish. But see, if you have light coming down hitting this warm colored rock, that light's going to bounce up on the underside of all these inner parts. So you'd have a really nice gentle play of bounce light going on. And then you'd go to core shadow, and then you get to like the core light up there. Whereas you probably wouldn't see something like that on the underside of this, right? Because there's water and stuff, but where there's rock and a surface covering it immediately, that would be a great opportunity to put these warmer tones underneath there.
Yeah, having it playing a little, kind of profiting a little bit more from that nice turquoise bounce light hitting off of the bottom of the structures and characters will definitely help. It'll help to unify things a little bit better. I would also venture to, in that lit area on that large foreground middle structure, to add a little bit more work into that, since it's such a focal point with the warm light striking across it. Give that a little bit more of a payoff, and that'll translate into the rest of the image. You don't have to do it everywhere, just there, because that's where we're going to be reading the textures, and just work those textures a little bit more, and that'll definitely it'll give it that little extra bit of spit polish.
So what you can do, sometimes I do this if you have one structure that's super prominent, you can just copy paste it depending on how your layer structure is, and you can just straight up like up-res it for a bit, work on it up-res, and then shrink it back down and put it into place. That way it'll give you a little bit of the real estate to get in there and tweak it. The other thing you can do just to kind of kickstart you into that direction as well is you go to sharpen and do the like the smart sharpen filter, which will basically clean up a lot of some of the softer edges that you have in there. And that might be a great way to really help get that going in terms of more detail and, of course, more clarity. So see, like, this is going to fill up. The other thing, since you do have it situated while this loads, while you have it under this pillar, I would cast a very direct cast shadow some way, maybe on that. So you'll have your form shadows, which are a little softer, because you have rounded structures, and then a very nice hard cast shadow on that might be a great way. Yeah, I'm not going to wait for this, because apparently that wants to take all afternoon, which we don't have. But I like your designs.
I've never thought of doing that before. That's pretty cool.
I did it mostly with character-based stuff. If I have like a smaller, like, because your character's already really well detailed and stuff, but it's a great way to work on it a little larger, scale it down. Things always look better when you scale them down.
Yeah.
The other thing is maybe either make this a little more blue or get a little bit more form. The brushwork in this is a little too loose, too implied. Someone that's obsessive over rocks may be a little more critical about that. But I would clean up the brushwork in there, and as well as the water. Like this is like as a great color sketch, it works perfect. But like I said, clean that up, clean some of that detail up in the water, and then maybe like this as well as the third thing. This will be like a fantastic portfolio piece, hands down.
Really nice. Yeah. Yeah. Big 2 thumbs up for that one. All right, what do we got?
Just gonna, I'm gonna close these out as we do them to get my computer running a bit faster again. I already had like 10 files open on my Photoshop. I tried to close as many, but I still had a handful of things. Yeah. All right, Hole, what you got going? What you got cooking?
Google does too. It uses up a lot of RAM on your computer if you have a lot of tabs. Google's a terrible hog for RAM. All right.
Dude, Hole, are you just fucking with me? You put Ninja Turtle right here.
Is that it? Where? What? Nice.
Turtle Island. Okay.
Well, that definitely, yeah, and it's shaped like a turtle. So that's definitely. I love the idea. I think this actually. I love the fact that you just have fun with this. That we both got a nice reaction out of that. I think that's a very clever move. Visually, the first thing that struck me, with the main thing, the main thing is the saturation. You kind of have all these punchy greens and reds and blues and turquoises, and they compete against each other. So you might want to find 1 or 2 colors you want to anchor towards, and knock back the rest of them, just so we don't have something that's too saturated, because that can make things look a bit synthetic.
You can see how he got there, because he copied the sky in this reference. And then use like the foreground of these two So while both references are very nice, there's a lot of punch in the colors for this type of concept, and you have to kind of balance that. But you have a bright yellow sunset here, which again, the sun's not here. This is like the sun's like way over here, because you're gonna get this kind of gradation over like the whole thing where the sun is on that sunset, and it's not gonna go to that blue that quickly. So you have that blue competing with this yellow, competing with this blue, competing with that green. Yeah. You got a saturation beast here.
Yeah. And if you look at your references, you notice that in the sky one, the one with the blue sky, it's got a very toned, very desaturated everything else. In the water one, it's got a desaturated sky. You've incorporated both simultaneously, and you got that awesome blasted cinematic lens flare to go with it. Very epic. Very epic reveal.
The takeaway with this is, with reference, you have to be very kind of selective with what you grab and careful what you and apply the lightings of property and color to them. Yeah. I would say for you, spend more time on the drawing, more time on the design, rather than, this is a classic scenario of just jumping into a photo bash without working through the design, without having a strong enough foundation to really pull it off to the level you probably want to.
Right.
Just go back, stick to the drawing, stick with basic coloring, work through it that way.
And I would also mention here, just a little mention, remember, whenever we see a person, like Tyler had mentioned the other two, we use that as a scale reference. We'll look at the boat in comparison to him, and that looks like a paddle boat, but that boat makes the island look puny. If you want the island to look humongous and impressive, make that boat smaller, because that's our scale comparison. Even the turtle.
And because you have no atmospheric perspective really on this mountain, it literally looks like it's a very, like it might be a few stories high, and that's it. There's no depth around that.
Yeah. Yep.
I was just watching Ninja Turtles this morning. It's like trolling me. Me and my baby watch the old '80s show every day. I have them all on DVD.
My next movie is going to be Incredibles 2. I cannot wait to see that.
I do want to see that.
Yeah. It's getting good reviews, too. People are coming in with some
I couldn't believe how long the original one has been out now. It was like 2004, maybe. I was like, wow.
18 year?
It's a while. Maybe 2005, but it's a lot older than I remembered it being.
Yeah, me too. I thought it came out not that long ago. All right.
Hey Kai,
What do we got here?
this is
Beautiful
this is nice
colors
and quaint.
rendering. Oh,
I would
this
stay in here. Does the
what a
girl
beautiful.
come with the room?
This is so lovely. I mean, the colors and the treatment, the delicate rendering is something we don't see very often, and I love that. You've got. I would put you right into an illustrator category, being that your brushstroke is very iconic. I love that. I think compositionally, some of the things that grab me are again just some little subtle little tangents, like the way the hair is touching the top of that hut. That can flatten the image. I would create a bit of a separation or an overlap there, and that's one major thing. And the values too. Just Tyler had mentioned in the other ones, add a little bit more atmospheric perspective to those background huts to push foreground background a bit more, so our eyes don't get confused on what's close and what's far, because that really flattens the image a lot.
It completely flattens out when you desaturate it, and
Yeah,
I had a conversation with a student this morning on this. Like
yeah,
you have such a good use of color, beautiful analogous color scheme, and they're working and barely holding the piece together. But again,
hmm
when you take the color away, that's where the problems become evident. So it's not in
yeah,
your choices of color, but it's at the value structure with those colors.
yeah,
You'd want to group a lot more things going on. Separating the background mountains. If this is a bright sunny day, remember shadows are going to be hard and directly underneath. I didn't mean to do that. And directly underneath anything that's casting them. So it's gonna get very dark under here.
yeah,
So the things that are in the light, the direct light, are gonna be pretty bright. You're gonna have a good range. But anything in the shadow, that's gonna be really blown out. Well, the opposite
hmm
of blown out. It's just gonna be very dark, and you're gonna want to focus the detail out of the shadow areas. So
yeah,
you want to make that very
yeah,
obvious. And so you could group a lot of this up in terms of the shape by grouping everything around it. So bright blues against like
hmm
a bright orange here. But a lot of this feels like the scale should be up a little bit more so you can
yeah,
have room to firmly show underneath there. It looks like this is something that if you worked a lot bigger, you could get a lot more of these details under here where it would be applicable, like
yeah,
nice shadow under there. If this is warm and it's in direct sunlight, make it really nice and warm. Show that this
mm,
light is bathing, so you have a very clear indicate. This is an extreme exaggeration, mind you, with no attention to the delicacy that you have here.
hmm
But you want to show like this is in shadow, this is in light. This is maybe make that a bit higher. This is placed at a very awkward height
hmm
that's kind of just marrying your actual horizon, and that flattens it out too. So my solution with this would be to raise it higher so you can continue with the shadow and show underneath there a little bit,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and keep that separate from the background. The
yeah,
next thing too is to probably soften or get in there with like a natural media style brush on the edges of those mountains. Like these edges are far too crisp and clean
hmm
for having for having vegetation and stuff back there.
yeah,
Like you want to, if you're painting with this much finesse in the foreground, carry that all the way through to the background and get the delicacies, that would go with
yeah,
it, rather than
yeah,
something that maybe give it a little more gradual shape and form, so we just don't have like this is a hill, and that's a hill. Give it like a little bit more of a natural flow.
hmm
But it's a beautiful concept and scene.
I like one last little detail. It's a subtle detail, but remember that as a human, we're always looking towards other people's faces. Even if we don't see her face, her head should be open to the composition. So having that hill and her head intersect like that in that awkward way kind of creates an awkwardness because it's creating an obstruction where we want to look first. So make sure that you move that hill out of the way so that the head's nice and free so we can see that her silhouette of her head nicely. That's it. That's all I would add
Nicely
to that.
put.
Nicely done. Ooh, lovely colors. Holy smokes. I'm digging this. Look at that. Wow. I love that color
PJ
concept.
Sirach.
Wow.
I'd also like to give a brief shout out to Patrick Beeshorn. I forgot. I can't say his last name, but he used to do challenges all the time. He's now finally getting commissions from Blizzard.
Oh, well
Remember
done.
his art? We always like that. Looks like it's in Blizzard. Now he's getting commissions from them.
Holy shit. That's amazing.
He
Holy
made it. I love having a good success story.
Yeah, man. That makes me happy. That's so cool. Wow.
This is really neat.
For all of us. Wow, okay.
I
So
love your color comps right here. Like, what a quick,
yeah.
dirty way to like explore how you're going to approach your palette, and I also like your value comps. Like you understand the structure aspect of this in this areas very well.
Yeah, beautifully done. Now I'm getting just to quickly scrutinize it. A little bit of atmosphere. We've got that beautiful yellow cloud, and I wouldn't want to do anything to destroy that beautiful color scheme you've got. But it's a very powerful, strong color next to a cliffside that feels it's overpowering, and so that's kind of taking away. I would venture to knock back the value, create a bit more of a silhouetted cliffside there, so we can see some contrast between the cliff and the clouds. So
right here, there has to be that separation.
Yeah,
because you have the same color scheme for each, and that's if I think you went a little more orange with the cliff like you did in your thing. I know that it's kind of, you switch the palette a bit, but there has to be some separation. You could also maybe start to imply a little bit of the color shifts on the backside of your clouds as well, to basically fight the yellow out of one of these or both around where these two are overlapping.
Clever way of doing that.
Maybe a little bit of that maybe coming in with your actual color palette, see, from the sky. I'm just doing a little bit of a lighter version of it. So see, we're going to neutralize some of those yellows back there, and that might be another good way. If you don't want to go this orange, right, and have that orange right there, which is, it's a strong orange. If, let's just say you wanted to go a little more yellow, well then you have to separate it on the cloud either way. Like, there has to be a compromise.
Yeah, look at
so that they read. The other thing, I think, like, this is beautifully illustrated around the character as a focal point, but the rocks, as being so kind of close and such, it takes a good third, right? A third of your comp up. I think those would have to be rendered a little bit more delicately, a little bit more carefully. If your light's coming in from this way, for example, right? Your rock over here, you're going to have your shadow, your core shadow. It's going to get. Let me try to color pick this. Things are just running a little slow, right? But then that's going to cast. You're going to have a very deliberate kind of cast shadow, right here, where all of this, right, is in shadow. And again, you might run into the same thing if light's directly hitting something like right here, right, and you're showing that light. You probably would see a little bit, depending on how the objects are facing, you would see some of that bounce light happening in the shadow of this side as well. But a good reference on this will go a long way. But a lot of them, it feels like redundant. As Adam described earlier before, where it's like same shape doing that, same shape doing that, same size, same shape doing that. You want to create a dynamic and definitely show the erosion. Look at those Thailand cliffs or the rock formations there. You want to show the erosion down below.
I would add something to that too. If you just a little, because our focal point, our payoff is the character who's fishing, and he's kind of competing with the big that cloud. It's a busy area of the painting. I would actually extend that rock structure he's on, so he's perfectly sitting. He's been framed by that bright side of the cloud. Bring that way up in the sky. Have him use up a little bit more real estate and frame him nicely. It'll make it feel even more fantastical to have him fishing from 40 feet up in the air, right? And it'll also.
So you're saying take this guy as a focal point and like physically move a lot of that, make it larger.
Or make it larger, or just extend it so that rock is actually taller. So his whole body, that whole silhouette of him and his body is silhouetted, is right in front of that bright. Not scale it, or you could scale it, or you could just lift him up higher. So he's not, his face isn't in that busy shadowed area of the cloud underneath it, right?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, so he should be like just up into the simplistic nature of it.
Now he's framed a little bit better.
Yeah, I messed it up a little bit. Sorry, but you also, like, this is a great idea, and again, for the most part, really brilliantly painted. I would go with rules of odds on this case, just because I'm such a traditionalist with my design ideas. I would have like a third rock, like back here with another guy. I'd probably simplify the shape of the mountain so it's coming down and making a very bold dynamic shape that's probably overlapping that. And then I would simplify some of the awkwardness that is the background mountain that you have going on in there.
I would add one last thing, actually, that's actually quite important. And that's the fact that they're positioned further over to the left and they're looking left, which is leading our page. You'd want to move them over to the right or extend your canvas on the left side so that he's not fishing in a corner. He's leading us into the page instead of off of it. That's actually something.
Because the thing is that the open side of the canvas is everything on this side, which the viewer will innately ignore a lot of the things not facing that as well. And there's a lot of canvas, a lot of real estate happening over there
behind them. Yeah,
it's not nearly as important. So you could crop it and extend it if you want to keep your vertical orientation, or just extend it and make a beautiful seascape.
Yeah, you'll see it'll add a lot to the piece for sure. Really beautiful though. Wow, I'm a big fan of your colors there. That's beautiful, and your imagination.
His colors tickle my mustache.
It's not even November, dude. What's the deal?
You'll see next week.
He's getting Tyler.
I'm bartending at a tiki bar.
Really?
For a bachelorette party this weekend. So I'm going to get a sombrero. I'm going to get a poncho. I've got my mustache out. I'm going in kind of full get up to it. So I'm just prepping. John Lau, how you doing?
How nice. All right. God, every time you do something, John, you up the bar 60-fold in everything that you do.
Oh, yeah, he's got a little 3D model there.
Wow, look at that. Oh, is that his original model?
Yeah, I think so. It's very dynamic perspective on this one.
Beautiful.
Thing is, a lot of this is like too blue for me.
Mm-hmm.
Even like in a stylized way, like everything, there's not an ounce of a warm color in this shot, and for me that makes me a little sad.
Yeah.
So
I would add some of that warm light splashing on your characters too, and it'll bring them forward. It'll help illustrate them. It'll help put focus on them, and create a bit more visual separation between them in the background for sure.
So see, like if we grab the warm toggles and we start putting yellows, right, and reds into it, theoretically, in the highlights that I selected, it should make them feel a little warmer. I made a really quick, janky selection, but see, it helps them out a lot.
Yeah, look at that.
Cools against warms. Like, her tones now are entirely warm.
Yep.
It only took a click and a slider. You could fix a lot of the structure. The clouds feel a little too phoned in for me. I'd get them a little more deliberate, a little more careful with the edges on them. Even if it's a little softer, I do a little more with them, because essentially what's happening, a lot of the same fuzziness in terms of the texture of the clouds in these mountains back here, but they're also by design, a lot of the same kind of size and same shape.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, like, I'm trying to draw it, I guess it's... Oh, I'm selected. Like, that's the same, like, that... It feels too similar for me. Like, make very bold and deliberate decisions with your designs and with the shape of them. This is also an awkward part for me. I think it's just because of how it's rendered or painted here. It's like a big thing in the middle, or a prime real estate in your composition, in your design. Mm-hmm. It's like, but it's like the least important part of the picture, because it's just a rock. But you got people down here, which are cool. You got houses way up here, which are kind of getting put off to the side. So like maybe putting a ladder or a couple other platforms. Show something more important right there.
It's all about that payoff, right? If you're going to make people look somewhere, give them something to look at, right? Otherwise, you're just making them look at a wall, essentially. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it's still a place I'd want to visit. I do like it.
It's lovely. It really is lovely, and it's very moody and atmospheric.
Very atmospheric.
Tweaks really will completely transform this piece. Really beautiful.
Next. How are we doing on time? One more?
Yeah, let's do one more. We'll try to keep it at 12. Because I haven't even eaten yet. I'm intermittent fasting, so. My tummy's going to start grumbling.
Better get that in.
Yeah. All right.
I'll just edit that bit out. All right, next up, Tommy.
Let me see what we got. Again, a very illustratory feel, a beautiful, unique way of rendering, and a unique sense of these fluorescent colors. Something you don't see it. A lot of people don't have the courage to be able to paint like that, and I find that commendable. If you really want to create a real payoff, if you want those fluorescent colors to really kick, you need everything else to be toned down, because you want people to just look at that very crustacean type of structure and go, wow, you want that to be the payoff after having an otherwise somewhat drab environment. So by having that neon everywhere, it competes and pulls your eye all over the canvas and people don't know what to focus on. So you want to make sure that that structure is the payoff, because that's where the most interesting forms are happening, right?
So yeah, we do have an establishing shot here, for sure. Yeah, there is an abundance of the glow. Yeah. Where actually, these are, for me, a little easier to digest in a read. These color comps.
Yeah.
Which I know probably took you a lot less time than to do this. But for this, it's like, I feel like if you're going to do an establishing shot, maybe zoom out a little bit more. Because like even in this, right, this major structure here, which I guess we will substitute for this, there's a lot of room for it to breathe around it and kind of get there. It seems like this is just like bumped up way too close, and we don't get to see a little bit more of that greater context of where this is and a little bit more about it. That like kind of like we are here, like we get that context. So I would zoom out, show a little bit more of a foreground. Actually, in this case, I would recommend that. But work on the shapes and the flow. Like I could see like these are having a little bit better of a flow to them. But like having this line here, and this is probably what you were talking about, Adam, having this giant fluorescent line just cutting through like that. Yeah. And it divides like these very strong turquoise type of colors. That is like what kind of like folds the whole thing over for me, and it's not keeping me in your shot. It's
pulling your eye off the canvas, right? Yeah. I'd also mention something else value-wise. I think you'd benefit a lot. Those clouds are very damaging to this painting because they're a very bright daytime value in an otherwise nighttime sky, which is both messing with your brain, that value it's too bright, and at the same time it's competing with your foreground elements. And if you just take those clouds and darken them, all of a sudden that glowing structure is going to glow because that light is killing the glow, right? So make sure if you've got this bright glowing structure, have darkness behind it, and that'll kind of tie up, it'll make sense of everything in that sense. That'll definitely make
the other thing, coming back to that first scene, is I think you might be trying to show too much in one kind of go with this. Like I would ask you, as I asked before, like, what is this scene about? Is it about this as a structure, this as a place to go to, or is it about this thing going on in the background with the statue and with the nose geyser and like this luau, I don't know what it is, with these people camped out on the beach. You have these three major things, and while 3 is not a terrible number to kind of compact into a scene, I still don't know what the focus and what the emphasis should be on. Yeah. And that's what really makes it confusing to me. Yeah. Like, I'd pick like one of these things and just make it about that. Like, again, even in these sketches, like I can tell these scenes are all about that hut. Very clear and simple. There's nothing really kind of competing for that at all.
Yeah, exactly.
But like this being a face that it is, that a very kind of strong attention grabber, implying that there's a much greater story happening here than what it's really kind of the design is allowing us to have. Yeah.
I'm going to add something though, just on a positive note. I would add that creatively wise, from a concept art perspective, a director, film production crew, anybody who's using this as inspirational art, there's a lot of inspiration to be taken from this. The ideas, the glowing trees that are kind of flowing in the wind, that kind of stuff really gets my imagination going, and you could really build on an idea like this a lot. So in that sense, really, your ideas, don't knock that. There's a lot to be said there. I really feel beautiful.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Adam. I said this is what I call a classic case, or there's not a fundamental problem in the idea at all, but it's like the idea is far outstretching your technical skills at this point.
It was over.
Where it's like the drawing and the painting.
It's purely technical issues that we're dealing with here, but creatively really bang on. Yeah.
But so great job, and thank you. I hope to see you submit again, Tommy.
Yeah, really nice, Tommy. Very nicely done.
All right. Hey folks, we're back. This is part 2. As I let you guys know in the Discord yesterday, Adam and I did not get to finish these in one session. That's why we have a wardrobe change. I don't even have my hat, but I still have the mustache, so we're good.
And I'm not going to follow suit. That mustache is Tyler's and Tyler's alone. I'm not manly enough.
My brother tried to pull one. Not every fella can pull one off. Not every lady can pull one off. But you're looking as handsome as ever, so that's we're keeping it real.
I love you too. All right. So what do we got?
Woody, what do you got? Let's start. Woody, I can't read these sketches. I can't make an ounce of sense of them. Next time, I love to see these, but if I can't see them, don't take the real estate up. You know what you could do? You could run levels on them, and bring the contrast up so you could kind of tighten them up if you want to show them.
Yeah, yeah. Bold the line
I'll
for
just
things
take
that
your
are
word
closer
for it.
and further away. Yeah.
And we'll look at this. So I don't know, Woody, how I guess it wasn't intentional looking at your final, but I see like some beard and some man face, like it's a giant statue up on this cliff.
Okay.
That's the first thing I saw when looking at this, and obviously looking at it here, it's my mind making it up. I like your character. I kind of actually like this one better, though. I like how he's free jumping. I get what he's doing here, and that makes sense, but I don't know. That's like a mile or two away. That's a long way to climb, or I don't know. What do you feel, Adam? I've talked a while.
I like the action of it. You've got like that nice diagonal line, and you've got the action of where he's probably going to be like swinging along this vine or grabbing onto something. Maybe he's grabbing the rope and swinging. But my logical brain, sometimes you can mess around with logic and you can improvise. But in this particular case, when I look at the size of that vine and his little hands, he can't grip onto a vine with little hands like that, right? So
I think he's going to grab this rope and maybe swing.
Yeah, but then he's
again,
got
that's
those
not going to carry him
obstructions, right?
upwards.
Then he's got little bits of thing hanging off of it that would probably break the rope or stop him from being able to swing. Something that I would, if you make it a little bit more, a little bit clearer what he's doing with that vine. But like Tyler had said, I like that sketch, that free flying kind of open pose.
Yeah, like here's the reference for it. Like I think that's a good use of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's see what's here and how this is working. This is still something I'm seeing a lot in your bigger scenes like this. It's not as obvious in your kind of smaller, more up close ones. But when you have like a big scene like this, you generally really kind of group these shapes like it's like a stage play. Like here's a very flat shape. Here's a flat shape on the plane further in the back. Here's another flat shape further in the back. Here's another flat shape further in the back. Whereas if we were looking at this, I don't know if the easiest way to show this, in 3 dimensions, right? Here's our plane. I'm actually going to get this a little bit bigger, because a lot of people struggle with this, so I'm going to take a moment to, right, here's our 3D plane, here's your camera at this end. Right now, if we were to look at this from a 3-dimensional view, right, your objects are all basically like this. Right, here's your water. It's all very flat, and looking at it like they're like different sides of things moving in and out from off stage. You want to look, when you start to draw and design these things, how can you integrate, if you have an element in the foreground, how can you integrate it with form and dimension right past the camera? Or how can you weave this flat looking shape here, how can you bring that in depth over to the midground and possibly connect? I know there are islands, literally islands, but you can get away with that to some degree in the background there. But it's like even with like this shape here and this shape, there's no depth or form on them. They're largely like, they look like flat kind of cutouts. So easier said than done, I know, but I just want you to be mindful of that.
I would add too, especially with your lighting, another thing to be watching out for is, especially in your final, since we have color, you have nothing but a rim light around that background tree and a bit of a rim light hitting off the bottom of the leaves of the foreground tree. And what this is doing is it's creating a flat image, because the only thing that would catch perfect rim light around the edge is if it was a 2-dimensional shape with a little bit of translucency around the edge of it. That's not how real light would catch it. It would probably hit off the bottom of the tree, catch underneath. It would catch on the inside of that trunk. So you just lighting something with a rim light will not create a sense of 3-dimensional form. It'll actually do the opposite. It'll flatten the object. So pay attention to how light travels around the form, right?
I also think the lighting isn't specific enough. Like, I'm not sure what it wants to do. Like, I can see your influence, like, in this image here, but then some of the influences on, like, you have, like, a area of really bright cyan right there, then, like, a circle of yellow, and then, like, this blue you see up in the top with, like, purple over. It looks like a lot of it's kind of left to random chance rather than kind of like it's not a problem here, obviously, because it's just value, and I think it's a lot stronger because of that. But something was lost in how you structured your sky and how you applied that reference to it. Like next time, try maybe find like one image and be like, "That's my sky." And of course, when you find an image for your sky, that's often going to take this is the lighting in my scene, because like this type of lighting wouldn't warrant a rim light like this. Like if this is implying that your sun is here, how is it warm way up on the backside when you're lighting that, for example? All kinds of inconsistencies with the lighting.
Yeah. Yeah. So referencing would definitely help you solve that, because you're drawing too much from your head and you need to see what things look like in real life, and that'll solve a lot of those problems for you.
See, it actually looks like in his sketch here, he actually did what I talked about a little bit better too with his form. Like things are looking way more three-dimensional, at least in this one here, from what I can digest from that. So the last thing I want to talk about, Woody, and if I don't say it, I know Adam will, is all the tangents in the scene. Like this is a pretty bad one there. That's not a perfect one. This is like a little bit of an awkward one too. And I'll cut it there, but it's like since it's the area, basically a trifecta around the character, it's more of a big deal than it normally would be if it was something like off to the side, which you kind of have here, just perfectly conveniently letting the tree end here. Right. But for me, as a shape and as a design, this whole tree right here, like that, swaying way out, I get it's kind of an extension of this, and I think that's a great place to show it, but it's just how this shape is, how unreferenced it looks, and how unfinished it looks compared to some of this stuff, that it really is like, it becomes more of an eyesore than what it's worth at this stage.
And dominating. It takes up a lot of real estate, and it forces the active part of the scene where the guy's grabbing the vine way over to the side, so everything feels very claustrophobic, where you'd want to open it up, and that tree doesn't necessarily have to take up that much space, not that much real estate, because it's causing a lot of things to cram in too tight, which is what leads to a lot of tangents, right? So pay attention to that kind of stuff too, for sure.
And the last thing too is like this is implying that this is kind of a bit where the payoff is, but then it's way off to the side, and there's nothing else that actively kind of supports that. So it's like, okay, we got here, now like waiting for the big curtain reveal. Yeah. Where's the next thing? Yeah. Not that you have to cram this full of things, but it's like, I don't know, it's the whole design and structure of this scene that I think, like, bringing it back to something a lot more simple like this, it's like, okay, this is just a scene about a character doing some free diving, line jumping off a cliff. Like, it's a lot more simple because of that. It becomes more of a stage type of setup in its composition design. I think it just works so much better than this. Yeah, it really does. Yeah. But that's my 2 cents. Nice. Thanks for submitting. Hope to see you back. You actually got about 47 cents out of that one, yeah. You've been ducking out 2 to 3 weeks in a row now, Woody. Yeah. I'm looking for you. Or maybe we could have adjusted those problems had you made it the last few weeks. Yeah, anyways. All right, so amazing. Raven knows. Raven's been showing up. Right? We've got to call Woody out. He's been absent. All right, so this is a little bit of a different take. Now, I'll jump in right away and say, I know I'm beating Tyler to the punch here because I know that he looked at the same thing. You've got a nice warm orangey punch in that shot, which is immediately a focal point. And you've put an obstruction in front of it. So it's basically saying, hey, everybody look at my hand. And I put my arm in front of my hand. Well, don't do that. If that payoff is that orange tarp that grabs our attention, don't frame it. Don't block it with an obstruction. That's the first thing I would say for sure. How about you, Tyler? Raven, you could also submit probably about a third of the size that you did. I just noticed that when I tried to circle your tent and my brush was lagging because your file was so big. I work very small, so my computer can handle it a lot better. Yeah. Maybe you've got a super rig. I do not. Or my hard drive is just so filled at this point, it's just slowing everything down. Yeah, this is, I don't know, it's an interesting setup. You do have a nice foreground element. You're leading, the eye around. You have a lot of nice shapes here. That's for sure. But yeah, like, this is almost like, in a way, distractingly, like, orange that it sticks out. The scale, though, is also extremely questionable here. Like, if this is, like, some ring of a tub that we see right here, right? This is the opening of a tent. I don't know about you, Adam, but if I were looking at this scene, I would at least perceive a human size to be about, like, that big. It depends on what that tub in the foreground is. I'm not sure if it's like a cup or an actual barrel. I'm not sure what we're looking at. So maybe if we had something that gave us a little bit more scale. You could give the benefit of the doubt and we could make it like that. Yeah. But even so,
Even
it's like if this is a
in
full
the
tent,
tiny little tents off in the distance, there's a bit. Yeah, there's a bit. It's almost as if you used like those tents are. It's if you're using a wide angle lens and they look really far and tiny off in the distance. But then the foreground elements aren't like that. So you kind of have this warping to the background elements, but not to the foreground elements.
yeah,
So it just looks like a scale mistake, right? Yeah.
yeah, like everything like on this island or this segment here feels like it. You need to like continue that in terms of the shapes. Like if these are all like this big, these should at least be like that big, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Like there's a massive scale change, and I'm like, huh? And then like you have this massive tent that are over those. So again, if that's the size of things, then yeah, it's just a little confusing or disorienting.
I would add to this. I'm going to say this though. I'm really enjoying the colors and the overall idea, the tents and the light shining through the tents, and all of this has a lot of potential just by reorganizing your composition and scales to be a very successful piece of art. I love this, but make sure that you have a definitive focal point. Even if we don't see a character, we're thinking like a stage. Where are my actors going to go? Because you want to integrate that human element into your scene. So where would your actors actually act? And make sure that that's properly framed for your piece. Because right now it's just this kind of random assortment of tents with a kind of focal point with the orange tarp, but then you've blocked that out with the strings. So I would maybe move that orange tarp in that whole section a little bit more over to the left to open it up more to the center of the string, or take those strings out. Although those strings are a nice negative space. So
move the tent back there, like right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe have a few more orange ones. It's almost like sticking out more than... Like, it could still read as a focal destination due to how your lines are working. Yeah. Even if you included some more orange tents. Because, I don't know, for me it's just like, why is that the only orange one in the entire scene? And that maybe that's a Chiefs tent. I need to know more. I want to know more information about, like, all of this.
Yeah.
It's like we have an empty stage that never got finished.
Yeah. Oh, and you've got a bunch of tents, but no indication of humans that have interacted with it. So blankets, rolled up sleeping blankets, pots, campfire, because they're just empty tents with mattresses in it. So
footprints.
Yeah. That'll add a lot of dimension to this piece for sure.
And I don't know, the way the line's drawn here, it makes it seem like this is on a much higher elevation than what's here. Because, right, if this is just a natural arc like that, kind of like in my scene I have, you'd see the water coming up on that as well and stuff. So that this whole bit here with how that's down here and how this is so close, that part becomes disorienting. Now, I think with that said, you have a great idea back there going on too. But like, I don't know, how does that work into what's going on here? I don't know. I want to know more about what's going on.
And here, the scale. Another issue with scale. Are those little boats at the right next to the orange tarp?
Yes,
are those hamster boats or human? Look at the size of the tarp next to the boat. That there's a very big problem with that.
Yeah,
unless
boat
the toy
would be
boat
like that. You'd want make it about that boat.
Yeah. Those boats are very tiny next to that tarp. And if they're toys, make sure they look very clearly like toys. Right? So
Anyway, Raven, you got some good things. And some things that I would personally change, but thank you for submitting.
Yeah, I love the rendering. Just so you know, Tyler, a little side note, I have 25 minutes and then I got to run. Just so you know, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know you're going to have to edit that out, but yeah.
Maybe I won't. We'll do it like Amadadori.
Just answer the phone and have a conversation.
Hey, what's up? Hey, Alex. This is good. I don't recognize the name, so I apologize if you've entered this. This is great. I like your comps a lot.
Yeah.
That's batshit insane. This is a lot more focused. These are a lot more focused. I like 3, 4, 5. So this is cool. I like this.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of imbalance. You have your characters over to the left. Now, Tyler's mentioned this in earlier Brush Sauce Theaters as well, and that's be cautious with over-centered compositions. Everything is mirrored and centered down the middle. The other pieces have, 3/4 angles, a little bit more dimension and perspective in it. You can do this. You can have centered images, but it risks being a bit flat to a certain degree. Having everything a little bit too centered and stuff. My eyes keep looking down to the bottom and enjoying that, like number 3, like that hut from the side angle, or number 4.
4 is glorious. Like if you replace that hut at 4 with this gate, you're like, I think that would be the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And the symmetry too. That the symmetry can look a little bit two-dimensional, right? The fire, skull in the middle, skull on the top, 2 statues. The only thing knocking off that balance is those 3 characters walking up to the door. But that's it, so it feels very smack dab mirrored.
When you have, it's just, they're notoriously difficult to pull it off. And for me, the way to get away from that is if I'm going to go with a center-based composition where it's symmetrical, I have the most asymmetrical lighting possible. But since you have symmetrical lighting and asymmetrical composition, it's a little hard. And the only place I've actually only seen that really pull it off is in the new Blade Runner movie. They had a few shots where it was very symmetrical. I think they did it well. But like I said, I've personally never even seen something that I'd consider done, that well. It's just really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do, Adam? Would you move like characters up into the foreground more? Would you create a different rhythm with them?
I would go with a little bit more randomness, like you're saying, So scale randomness with having people kind of like congregating to this doorway.
Boats.
I would add that fire, those 2 torches. I would have one fire being big and one smaller, having the wind wisp it over to the side, so it's not just these bushes of fire. It would rather be more flowing fire to create a little bit of movement to this otherwise static, straight-on shot. Like Tyler had said, I'd want somewhat asymmetrical lighting, and maybe even integrate some kind of like dark nighttime clouds that would create a wisp, that would create something more organic and less centered to the background. A moon or something in the shot.
Cooler tones on the sand on the side.
I would definitely bring in a foreground element too. Like have something overlapping in the foreground a bit to create a better sense of depth.
You could get nice moonlight on the back end. Of these, like this. I know I just overdid it nice. Here, but nice moonlight on the back side or on one side of these, the back side of this. You could look at it like this. Again, think of like how if you can work that moonlight into this. I feel like under time pressure. Let me see. Right, let's just remove that. This is easier. We'll just take this shape, add a bit of a gradient or something in the negative space to show more of that moonlight. Do whatever you can to break up how symmetrical this is. Have a little bit of that nice cool blue light on the back. Maybe you see a hint of trees behind there. Anything you can do. See, that's already kind of helping that out. The last thing too is if fire is going to be, this is, I would say overall was pretty competently rendered. Like you did a pretty good job. But like if fire is going to be your center point, I would get that fire looking a little bit better. I would say it's just not up to level of some of your materials and your other things going on in there, and that's the most important thing in the scene. So that by default has to look a little better. Yeah. But great idea.
Yeah. Very, very cool. All right, what do we got?
This is pretty quaint. I like it.
Yeah, and when Tyler and I first looked at this, we had a very nice reaction to it. It's a very clean design, very nice graphic shapes, very excellent composition. I think the first thing that grabbed me, that made me go, is the water. I felt a little bit, little waterfall felt a bit too turquoisey saturated. I would knock that back a little bit to make it feel a bit more natural. Because the rest of your scene has this nice warm lighting. There you go. Look at that.
And I'm doing, Adam, on twofold. I'm raising that water level a little higher. So what you can do is you can add more depth down there. Like if by taking this line now and making it go like that.
Yeah.
See, it makes it look a little more 3D. Like maybe that goes in a little bit. That's going out. Fake that 3D when you can. I would say remove this. This looks like a classic case of that's in the corner because I wanted to just fill that corner space. Oh, sorry. I don't know what that was doing. But yeah, I would just remove that. Clean, keep it nice and simple. Maybe have that down here like that so that this is all a distant, pretty mountain back there with all these nice shapes. See, it's going from the foreground kind of to the background. And then make a very clear distinction, like you have here in this reference. This reference is perfect for it. This is forest. This would be like, right, this is the side of it if we're going to break it up that way.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe some of it's jungle, maybe some of it's actually rocks. And you could also get in there and show beach. You know, do we have beach down there? You could add a secondary pass of a lot of these detail elements. And how do those shapes work and look?
Nice.
Little things you can do like that.
Mm-hmm. Be wary. You see the little tiny little banister on that house, and that where our eyes are going to look at that banister and the characters and go, "Oh, okay, the banister only comes up to their knees. It's not high enough." So you might want to scale those characters down or scale up the building.
I'd scale the entire house up.
Yeah,
like a good amount. Like make it like that big.
Yeah, now that'll make more sense with the characters.
And
right?
with how sharp that is like that, this waterfall does feel like it's weirdly placed here. I don't know, something about that. How this all is shaped. I would consider looking at, okay, maybe if I make, if I'm looking at the three-dimensional forms, maybe this would look better like this, and then maybe like having the waterfall kind of tucked out coming right down there, that can work. Maybe a few more hills, bringing in, basically break this up a little bit more, all I'm recommending. And then have some more bushes and stuff around it. Make it feel a lot more organic and free-flowing. And then maybe what you could do is take, in the background behind there, is show another piece, potentially to show another cliff in the background too. That way you can build a little bit of consistency with how this is going. Okay? Just a few suggestions. Overall pretty rendered. The clouds are a little on the flat and muddy side in here and stuff. I'd be careful on that. Show a little bit more firmly what's in shadow, what's in cast shadow. Remember, clouds will have its own cast and form shadow on itself if they're really big and stuff. So referencing them a little bit, it's a really nice image. It's very pleasing on the eyes.
Very much dig it. All right, what do we got here?
By
Stolzheimer. Till Stolzheimer.
Another really pretty image.
Stolzheimer. Okay,
I like the blues and the reds. Like, very pretty. I remember looking at these in my references. I'm
really enjoying that color balance. That's really, really nice. The design's nice. The composition reads extremely well.
Yeah.
This is great. I'm really digging this a lot. I like the fact that you weren't too subjective with your colors. You just went with a color scheme that worked rather than trying to be true to real life type of thing. So it created a nice complementary color scheme.
I'm just making these edges a little bit firmer down there. And the other little recommendation I may have is like maybe show a hint at... Sorry, we have a delivery, and that's my dog going... Hey, he's currently eating a human being. Yeah, he's being a dog. He barks every day when the mail comes at the same time. Can't help himself. I'd show more of these trees down there to really help push that distance. Yeah. Like that. But, this is all pretty good. I also, shape-wise, I don't like how that's going like that and how that's going like that, too. That comes off as awkward. Lose these clouds, and I think it'd be better for it. Just doesn't need it if we keep it as simple as that. There's ways you could always swirl clouds in. If you could do things with it, but how they currently are, I'd just change it, and I think it would be stronger. Yeah, and I'd say because you have a limited number of shapes, be wary with the little tangent with the little peaks stepping off the top of the building and how they tangent with the thing there. In both cases. Yeah. But it's very nice image. I'd put a little more semblance of human civilization things. Maybe there's I think what would enhance this boat is having maybe a few docks, maybe like a line or row of boats kind of coming in and out, like that. Maybe having them all tied to posts, maybe having like a line of like fish that are up there. It needs more context to really help sell this as a place that these people are living, it doesn't look like people are living there. Yeah. At the house, but no one's home. And one other thing I would add to this, that's it, and that would be birds. You need birds. Because you got this beautiful blue sky, you need those iconic, beautiful seagulls. I forgot to do birds in my scene. I want to do birds now. You got to think of adding elements that move. Yeah.
falling leaves, birds flying in the trees, smoke billowing, rain falling. Look at Akira Kurosawa, how he would produce. There's a video called "Composing Movement" from the YouTube channel Every Frame of Painting. Watch that video and you'll know exactly what I'm referring to. You'll definitely
Hey,
you'll know what I mean.
Adrian, welcome back.
Ooh-ah, what do we got? All right. I get a little bit more of a cartoony type of contour line to this, but nice refined sketch.
Yep. Back with the much lighter image for you, Adrian, than I typically see with you. This is a case where you have a lot of epic things going on, like batshit crazy. The thing for me that's the weirdest part of all this, like, you have this ship coming in, obviously we're in the foreground, with it, but then these ones are all kind of passing left and right very casually in the background. It's like if they are with them or are they against them?
Where are they going? Yeah.
You want to see like this is the top of another plane, maybe like you have another blimp, like you see the bottom of it, and all in perspective, like an army. Like you don't even need to show this one here in that kind of context. Just get that angle, like right. Like this is the cameraman, and we're like right behind the angle, kind of like looking down at all this. So in the corner we see this boat, and we see like the lines going out of frame. Sorry, I see your idea, and my mind the idea is there, but my mind just goes apeshit. Like I just want to do all these different things with the angles and stuff. So I apologize.
What hand? I see a hand pointing out of the boat. I'm not sure what I'm looking at though. You see pointing towards the beam? What is that?
I didn't notice that, Adam. That is really confusing, Adrian.
Oh, is that a character?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It looks like it's part of the boat.
Oh, there's like a masked character with kind of like a beehive type of hat with pauldrons that's leaning over and pointing like this.
Yeah,
I just got that. Okay.
I thought this was all the boat.
Yeah,
that's a design problem. Either it's color, it's rendering, it's how it's drawn. But that at this point, probably remove that or do a lot of redrawing.
You know what was throwing me off? If you look at the line of his green pauldrons going diagonally, that follows the perfect flow of the side of the boat, of the rim of the boat. And that's what made us think that was actually part of the boat. You'd want to make that tilted over. Don't do that dramatic angle so that we can see the pauldrons and the silhouette of the character a little bit more clearly and change the color because that dark colors blend in perfectly with the boat. We didn't even notice them. We just thought it was a design element.
And you have some solid reference down here, but make sure to don't be afraid to really like steal from what's working in it. This is like got a much better color depth and contrast and temperature than what you have. This feels like it was like a big layer of white was just splattered over tinting all your colors, sapping the life out of them.
Yeah.
As you can see here, like this is a nice warm green, this is a nice cool green, here's a darker green for these types of trees. The water has a lot of depth to it too, showing like this is a really deep area, this is a shallow area, so on and so forth. But this is all like, that's flat, I don't know where the light source is in this scene, and it just leads to other problems. So you have good reference, just don't be shy when it comes to applying it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good job, though.
Yeah.
I don't know how out of your comfort zone that image was for you, but I'm happy to see it. All right, last one.
Okay. Now,
Polynesia Napatan.
This wins the mood award. And I think because one of the main reasons is because the subtle use of color. Yeah. And this, you can see the power of the subtlety of these colors. You could look at this and call it a monochromatic painting, but it's not. It's many subtle different variations of teal and pink and green and blues. And as such, those yellow lights really grab you because you weren't overstating it. The moon really grabs you too. Yeah. Now, I think for the sake of, you could push a little. I would push the silhouette of the kind of the mid-ground structures that we're looking at with the huts. And put a little bit more darkness into there, deepen in that foreground area so it's a little bit more in the shadow, and have that moon really rim light it nicely. You could really create a nice depth there. It'll help to push that atmospheric depth.
Yeah, like you can get a lot more simple. Like this tree over here, since it kind of turned into a bit of a mess with the brushwork and the shapes, just have it be a graphic shape, like 100%. Now, I just selected a really ugly graphic shape, but that's still kind of what you want from it. Very graphic, and then that way around it, you can select basically areas of the background. Let's just call it like everything around here and around the shape that I just made. Right, you can get into this area and remove a little bit of that information because it is at night and it's all in the background. Oh, come on. Here we go. Thing was not keeping up with me. You could add more blues and some other kind of colors. See, it's going to soften it up a little bit and help keep our emphasis kind of like right into there. Add a little bit more green. We can go in. We can even you can deepen it a little bit too. Like that's fine. But see, now it feels like it's a lot more depth right here.
Mm-hmm.
And also watch your. This is a big kind of tangent as well, like right into there. I just tried to circle it right here with how that shape is working.
Notice as well, yeah, that tree in the foreground, the tree and cliff, are kind of, they're fitting inside another form. So what you want to do is maybe take that cliff in so that the tree actually sticks out from that form, and then we get the nice sense of overlap. That'll help with the depth of the piece.
So you just move it all in, have the tree kind of stick out. Probably remove that tree. That one just becomes, I think, distracting for me, having it float up there. If you want to do more with this, do something outright like that and be a little more direct with it if you want. But this is nice. You have a lot of nice subtlety that a lot of people have trouble capturing. I'd probably even go a little further in some places to highlight a little more form like you did. Like this form reads pretty good on the turtle, but then it gets a lot flatter in these other surfaces. Like it's really hard to tell what's the top, what's the side, what's the back. Yeah. And just simplify information. And that can really help that. And just group up in bolder use of shapes where it is darker. Like you could like make this whole shape like really, really dark. Like there's nothing important in there. Just get, simplify like you did here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like back here.
And technically speaking, if you want to be anal retentive about it, the moonlight wouldn't quite shine through those two cracks because the moon's not lined up properly to shine light through the sides of those two buildings there.
No.
So that most of that would probably be in shadow.
Yeah, just simplify.
Because it's a low moon, right? So it's not gonna. I'm
just going crazy with
shot through like that. There you go.
Yeah, keep that line like maybe like right there at best.
Yeah.
Where it would come a little more directly. The angle was definitely off. And then you could even push, some closing thoughts. You could push some of those moonlight colors a little bit more.
Yeah.
On these surfaces. In a few various ways.
There you go.
These scenes are notoriously difficult to pull off, especially with some of the subtlety that you have going on in here. But I think you're definitely heading in the right direction. So like you can definitely work a lot. You can have this look a lot more finished by cleaning up these shapes. I just put a YouTube video up about this a week or so ago. It was a forest cottage, and that's largely what it comes down to. Is like just get these shapes all very, nicely clean. So let's see when we zoom out when we take this, it's just like cleaning up those shapes and having them read a lot more directly will help a lot of that. See, like in here, that gets completely lost. These are like, look at this is the ocean. Watch my color picker, and this is the rock. It's like the same thing. You need to create that separation.
Yeah.
And do it with a nice clean shape. Shape. I just want to go over and sculpt out all your edges.
Yeah, and the rim light from the moon. That white rim light can definitely create the nice pop too. As long as you don't see that moonlight directly behind it on the water too, you'll get a nice contrast there. So there you go.
Very cool scene.
Yeah, I really love the mood of this piece. It's really beautiful.
Even, in all honesty, I'd even recrop it a little bit too. Like if this is your canvas size, I probably would just bring everything in. Too much sky that's just not of any value to your scene. Have it set like that. A lot more use of your space.
There you go.
All right, guys. So we're back. We've discussed. Oh, I lost you, Adam. I had the portrait of you down here. I don't know where it went. Anyways, I'm here. Adam's still here. You can't see his portrait.
Hi.
I'll just move this. I'm gonna move it down. We'll sub it at the last bit here.
There we go. All right.
So guys, I'm back here with Adam. we have decided our two favorites. It was unanimous. There wasn't even much discussion in this regard. Like, we just kind of read each other's minds. Our favorites was Anton's, the runner-up going to Till here. I think you guys did a great job. Everybody did a great job.
Yeah, we got to say, man, when we first opened it up, we just went, wow, 50 times. Every single time a new file opened up, every one of you went well beyond the Call of Duty and produced your best work. And we really, our hats off to everybody. It was probably one of our favorite sessions so far.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and sorry it took us so long this month to get to them. Just fell behind, and it's difficult to schedule these things, but we sincerely do enjoy it.
Yeah, really had a lot of fun.
Great job, guys.
Congratulations.
Continue to push them. Proudly put them in your portfolios. They look great.
Yeah, really beautiful, guys.
Thank you for joining me today, Adam. I appreciate it.
My pleasure as always.
Guys, be sure to check back in the Discord for the next details whenever they're decided for the next challenge, okay? Bye.
All right. Take care, guys.